Incredible moment revealed. Single dad's kind gesture sparks touching question from his daughter. Mark wiped the sweat from his brow as he tightened the last screw on a rickety fence. The early evening sun hung low in the Ohio sky, casting a golden hue over his modest home. Juggling 2 jobs as a handyman to make ends meet, he nevertheless found his strength in one illuminating truth: every hour he spent working was an investment in his daughter, Lucy's future. She was his heartbeat, his driving force, and he often thought about how he could offer her more than just a roof over her head. When he first heard the muffled sounds next door. It was the teenage boy from across the street, Jake, sighing deeply. Mark's instincts kicked in. He climbed down from the fence and walked over. Jake was sprawled on his driveway, staring uncomprehendingly at an open math textbook, his pencil lying forgotten beside him. "Struggling?" Mark said gently. The boy looked up, surprise quickly morphing into embarrassment. Parents were supposed to be the ones helping their kids, not neighbors. But Mark shrugged off the instinct to retreat. "Yeah, just this stupid math stuff." The desperation in Jake's voice struck a nerve in Mark. Even after a long day, he couldn't ignore that need. He pulled up a piece of concrete beside him, ready to spare a half hour. The boy needed help, and Mark had to admit he was more than capable of stepping in. After all, formulating problems into solutions was what he did every day. "Want some help?" he asked, knowing he was sacrificing precious family time. His mind flickered to his piled-up tasks, a never-ending list of repairs and bills. But, somehow, spending this moment with Jake felt right beyond the chores, beyond the struggles of single parenthood. Lucy watched the scene unfold from the porch with her bright eyes wide open, admiration welling up within her, so much like the girl who drew with hearts and colors. At dinner, Mark was replaying the moment spent with Jake when Lucy piped up, "Daddy, why do you help others when we have so little?" The question landed heavy on his chest. Did he have to explain why he offered kindness? Because it mattered. Because even amidst his struggles, he had something to give that wasn't tangible. Yet, the tension nagged at him: if they needed help too, didn't that make him a fool? Before he could answer, thoughts raced through his mind. He wanted Lucy to see the world as a place of hope, but at what cost? What kind of lesson was he teaching her? Was he trading their struggles for the greater good or stacking more burdens on their plate? In that moment, as uncertainty clouded him, he felt overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he pondered Lucy's question, the weight of their everyday life pressed on anew. Just when things seemed manageable, word spread that the school district planned to cut funding for after-school programs vital for kids like Lucy. Anguish coursed through Mark. How could he remain steadfast in his values and protect their family? Each evening, juggling repairs, he felt the pressure escalating, reminders of his limitations glaring back at him. But perhaps this time, marks of uncertainty didn't belong only to him. Lucy, inspired by her father's compassion, began to express their situation through her art. Each stroke reflected the bustle of their town, filled with children, dreams, and hope. Yet, as she became entwined in the world of art, Mark felt himself wrestling with a daunting unknown. Lucy's talent could inspire change. In a way he couldn't, but how could they bear the setbacks they both faced? What could they uncover when the stakes were raised so high? As Mark continued to contemplate all these responsibilities, the pressure of keeping Lucy's childhood joyful yet realistic began to weigh heavier than usual. Hope felt like a flickering light, still hauntingly beautiful, yet exceedingly fragile. Unbeknownst to them, a hidden document resurfaced in Lucy's research, one that had the potential to change everything. They stood at the brink of possibility, but could it really lead to a profound difference in their lives? Mark paced the dimly lit room, the walls bearing witness to a storm of emotions swirling within him. The document Lucy had found lay crumpled on the table, its edges frayed from the anxiety of being pushed around during their frantic search for answers. It wasn't just a list of funding opportunities, it bore the potential to unlock resources that could change Lucy's world and their lives as a whole. His heart raced as he thought about all the nights spent working, fixing homes and mending fences while dreams of providing a better future for Lucy drifted just beyond his reach. This new possibility sent tendrils of hope spiraling through him. Yet, with hope came questions that posed perilous risks. What if the funding didn't come through? What if this turned out to be yet another dead end? Could he even find the time to pursue it alongside his demanding jobs? As Mark wrestled with these thoughts, he recalled Lucy's artistic endeavors, the way her sketches of joyful kids and bustling scenes could captivate the world around them. It lit a fire within him, but there was a sting of guilt too. At what point was chasing opportunities for survival becoming a distraction from embracing the moments that truly mattered? Sitting down with Lucy, her small body curled up against the couch cushion, he watched her intently. She seemed lost in her art, paintbrush moving rhythmically across the canvas. Yet beneath that focused exterior, he sensed a brewing storm as she frequently glanced at him, her bright eyes reflecting not just admiration but a call for reassurance. "Lucy," he began, his voice unsteady. "What if we tried to get that funding for your art program together?" Her eyes darted up, a glimmer of excitement illuminating her face, quickly shrouded by the weight of her father's caution. "But what if we fail, Dad?" That simple, stark question echoed in Mark's mind. Failing, that was what had kept him awake at night, what had threatened to unravel every ounce of purpose he felt. He took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of his resolve. "Then we try again. It's about pursuing our dreams, not just reaching them." A flicker of hope sparked between them, an acknowledgement of their shared struggle. Encouraged, Lucy grabbed a notebook and began sketching various ideas around their venture, colorful images of art displays, smiling students, and community murals. Mark felt the tension in his chest ease, yet shadows still hung in the corners of his mind. What ramifications would this pursuit bring? Could they handle the pressure of expectations, even from each other? As the days turned into a rhythmic routine of work and artistic exploration, Mark found himself involving Jake in this quest for funding. Pulling in the neighborhood kids, they painted together in the yard, laughter becoming a bridge to the previously unapproachable. Each stroke of color in Lucy's artwork represented not just their ambitions but the forging of new friendships, collaborative visions invading their shared reality. But would it be enough to secure the funding they desperately needed? Driving home one evening after yet another long day, Mark's thoughts churned with the realization that this was not simply about getting the funding, it was about fostering resilience, showing Lucy how to navigate potential failures just as much as celebrating successes. Yet the dread of confronting reality gnawed at him. An unforeseen complication lay in wait, the deadline for applying was only a month away. The pressure began to build again, looming larger than the joys of shared creativity. He began to question his preparedness for what was ahead while juggling responsibilities that fought for his attention. With each passing day, doubt crept in. No longer was it just a matter of funding, it was now a race against time. And Mark felt this looming pressure like a storm cloud on the horizon, ready to unleash its fury. Would they find a way to keep their hopes alive, or would the impending deadline crush their dreams? Mark resolved to take a chance, but he had to make an important decision soon. Could they afford to risk it all in pursuit of something that might not materialize? As he turned into his driveway, a fresh wave of determination surged through him. He would confront every fear head-on. But the question remained, was he ready to face the truth of what risking everything might mean? With an uncertain heart, he stepped into the house, ready to discuss their next move. But looming questions danced just beyond his reach, lingering in the shadows of their fragile hope. Would this endeavor unite or fray their bond? Mark entered the house, the weight of unsaid words hanging thick in the air. Lucy was still at her easel, focused deeply on the canvas, her tiny fingers twirling the paintbrush with a mixture of confidence and vulnerability. He hesitated for a moment, taking in the sight of her an artist in her own right, trying to carve a space in the world with her unique vision. "Lucy," he finally said, his voice tentative, as if the mere act of speaking might provoke the shadows lurking within him. "We need to talk about this funding application." Her head snapped up, eyes bright with a mix of hope and apprehension. "Are we really going to do it, Dad?" He thought back to the late nights, the exhaustion, the dread lurking in the corners whenever he tried to sleep. Uncertainty threatened his resolve like a weight pressing down on his chest. "We're going to give it our best shot." She leaned forward, and with that small shift in posture, Mark felt the magnitude of the moment seep in. This was not just about art or funding, it was a declaration to lean into their vulnerabilities, to explore not just what they could achieve, but who they could become together. The internal conflict roared within him. Did he truly believe in their ability to accomplish this? Did he have what it took to face the storms that could follow? "Okay. So, what do we need to do first?" Lucy's voice cut through his whirlpool of thoughts. There it was, her youthful enthusiasm a compelling force. "We need to create a strong proposal," he replied, shifting into action mode. "We have to clearly articulate what your program will offer, how it'll impact the kids, and why it deserves support." As the discussion unfolded, Mark began to see her talent in a new light, the way she effortlessly illustrated ideas, her eyes sparkling with each new concept. He felt a surge of pride, a realization dawning on him. Lucy had skills that complemented his determination. They were not just chasing a grant, they were building a partnership, forging a bond strengthened through shared hopes. That night, they sat together, crumpled papers littering the table as they huddled over ideas and sketches. Laughter mixed with the seriousness of their task. Each suggestion from Lucy ignited fresh enthusiasm in Mark, pushing him to see the bigger picture. Nurturing Lucy's ambitions would require him to step beyond the familiar comforts of his usual responsibilities, but as ideas surged, an undercurrent of fear pulsed beneath the excitement. The looming deadline intensified his awareness of the stakes. What if they exerted all this energy only to face rejection? What did it signify for him as a father, as a man with a history of disappointments? Mark's mind raced, processing the implications, wrestling with familiar demons. "Dad?" A gentle voice pulled him from his spiral of thoughts. Lucy's face was inches from his, anxiety etched on her brow. "What if it doesn't happen?" He hesitated, carefully formulating his response. "If it doesn't, we can always try again. The most important part of this is that we're doing it together." Her smile returned, but Mark could see a flicker of worry lingering. It mirrored his own. With a quavering resolve, he realized he was not merely asking Lucy to confront failures, he needed to confront his own. The question lingered, weighty and undeniable: if they failed, how would he support her? Could he keep her dreams alive while nurturing his own? As days raced toward the deadline, he began to grasp another truth: the outcome was not the only factor defining their journey. The act of pursuing this endeavor was perhaps more transformative. It was becoming a lesson in resilience, one that would echo within them both, teaching them to discover strength against the odds, but that nagging apprehension remained sharp and incessant. Each moment spent working together also brought the specter of potential disappointment closer, the fear of loss ever present. Mark found himself standing at a precipice, looking down into the unknown. The shifts in their partnership forced him to draw on hidden resilience he hadn't known he possessed. And suddenly, the endeavor wasn't just about Lucy's art, it became an exploration of his own latent capabilities. Could he nurture that same resilience within himself? Mark stood in the doorway, watching Lucy apply the finishing touches to her work. A spark of determination ignited within him, and with growing urgency, he realized he had to act both for her and himself. What would happen if they lost everything in pursuit of this dream? It was time to lean into that fear, to confront it head-on. With a newly found clarity, Mark made a decision. The application would be submitted, and regardless of the outcome, they'd explore the art world together like two artists painting their future, but before he could feel satisfied, one more question flashed through his mind, a haunting specter waiting to be unraveled. What lay ahead, and what kind of father would he need to be when the road darkened? Mark felt a flicker of resolve as he held the finalized proposal in his hands. The conceptual pieces of Lucy's artistic vision, intertwined with his newfound sense of purpose, had transformed into something tangible. An application was no longer just a bureaucratic document, it was a testament to their growth and ambition. Yet, the gravity of the moment hit him again. Submitting it meant stepping into a realm of uncertainty that both excited and terrified him. As he clicked send, a wave of adrenaline coursed through him. Had he really chosen to embark on this unpredictable journey? Uncertainty began gnawing at him once more, a shadow creeping back into his thoughts. What if the response was negative? The perceived validation he sought loomed in the distance, but with it came the anxiety of potential failure. Dad! Lucy's sudden voice jolted him from his spiraling thoughts. He turned to see her, paint-smeared and beaming, anticipation radiating through her. Did you do it? He nodded, suppressing the unease that threatened to bubble to the surface. I did. We'll wait and see what comes next. Her joy was contagious, enveloping him momentarily. It was clear that for her, this venture held promise and excitement. But Mark couldn't detach from the undercurrents of self-doubt swirling within him. Could he truly rise to the occasion when adversity struck? Would he be able to embody the resilience he expected from Lucy? Days stretched into a week with radio silence from the funding organization. The waiting became a backdrop for Mark's introspection. He found himself caught in imagined scenarios, each one darker than the last. He had grown accustomed to disappointment, and the more he thought about potential rejection, the more it paled in comparison to his desire for Lucy's success. Can we paint together tonight? Lucy's question broke the tension thickening the air. She was eager, her excitement an invitation to dive into creativity. Yet, to him, picking up a brush felt daunting as he faced his own fears. Okay, but what should we paint? He asked, masking his trepidation with an effort to engage. Anything. Let's just let our imaginations run wild. Her enthusiasm sparked a latent urge within him, reminiscent of the carefree moments he experienced as a child. Sitting across from her at the makeshift studio in their living room, a small canvas stood before him. He dipped the brush in paint, unsure of what to create. But as Lucy began to blend colors, ideas illuminated in his mind like shards of light breaking through the fog he had wrapped around himself. The act of painting became fluid, each stroke reflecting not just a pattern or image, but an exploration of his inner conflict. For every color he laid down, an acknowledgement of both his fears and aspirations emerged. Each brushstroke became a dialogue between him and the canvas, a coalitional blend of vulnerability and strength. Mark felt emboldened, as if the act itself was a catalyst for personal liberation. Look, Dad. You're doing great. Lucy's voice pealed through the intensity of the moment, nudging him back to the present. He glanced over and saw her with wide eyes, imbuing every stroke he made with encouragement. Her unfiltered confidence resonated within him, illuminating the paradox of his situation. He was meant to be guiding her, yet here he found profound wisdom in her simple belief. In that shared space, a revelation began to crystallize. Mark realized that confronting his own failures wasn't solely about fortifying Lucy for potential setbacks, it was an integral part of his journey to authenticity. He desired to set an example of strength, and strength was not merely absence of fear, it was the choice to act despite it. Maybe it's okay not to be certain all the time, he murmured, more to himself than to Lucy. But the words carried weight. As Mark stepped back to assess their work, a blend of excitement and dread crashed over him. They had captured a moment, a convergence of their aspirations, intertwined with acceptance of the unknown. Suddenly, the familiar sound of a notification interrupted his reverie. The grant organization had responded, and the weight of uncertainty shifted into something far more palpable. He hesitated, heart racing. What lay behind the screen? Would this be the validation he craved, or the realization that he'd fallen short once again? Mark exchanged glances with Lucy, her expectant eyes urging him onward. Their journey had brought them this far, but the outcome was still unwritten. Swallowing hard, he prepared to confront whatever awaited on the other side. What revelation awaited them in that simple email? The moment of truth had arrived, and the stakes were higher than ever. Mark's finger hovered over the screen, the thin whir of anticipation coiling tightly in his gut. He could almost feel Lucy's energy beside him, her presence tangible and filled with hope. Taking a deep breath, he willed himself to focus on the task at hand. With a quick tap, he opened the email, and the words bled into view, each sentence a potential pathway for their dream: congratulations. The single word sparked a flame of joy and disbelief before the rest of the message filled in the narrative. The funding had been granted, and Lucy's artistic vision was poised to come to life. "We did it!" Mark exclaimed, his voice choked with emotion. Lucy squealed, jumping up and down in a fit of exuberance. It was a celebration, a moment in which their collective effort had blossomed into fruition. Yet, beneath his jubilant facade, another wave of uncertainty washed over Mark. This new reality, this achievement came with expectations, responsibilities, and an inherent pressure to deliver not just for himself but for Lucy. "Now we can start planning," Lucy exclaimed, her mind already racing ahead into creative possibilities. "What do we do first?" Mark watched her, a new sense of responsibility dawning on him. "First, we need to solidify your ideas. This isn't just about having the funding, we need a clear vision and a plan to execute it." The sudden shift in atmosphere grounded him. He had to turn his excitement into something methodical. They needed to break the project into manageable parts: the logistics, the timelines, and actual creation of the artwork. The thought of it was intimidating, yet it revitalized his dormant confidence. As they began mapping out their project on a giant sheet of paper, their shared laughter and ideas filled the room. Each concept was met with nods and sketches, a whirlpool of artistic energy. Mark encouraged Lucy to articulate her thoughts, allowing her to take the lead on several aspects. Within her, he saw a reflection of the confidence he was slowly building in himself. However, as the canvas grew crowded with ideas and shapes, the pressure of responsibility crept back. The fear of failing to deliver threatened to crack his steely resolve. He had the tools now: funds, partnerships, and Lucy's creativity, but could he execute it without faltering? "Dad, what's wrong?" Lucy's question halted him mid-thought. Her eyes searched his face, wide with concern. "Nothing. Just thinking about how much we have to accomplish," he deflected, but the concern on her face remained. "It's okay to be a little scared. But we're in this together, right?" Her innocent reassurance struck deep. His responsibility as a guide was intertwined with the freedom to embrace vulnerability. With Lucy's unwavering belief, he found clarity. "You're right, Luce. We're in this together." Ready to pinch the intensity that had been holding his creativity hostage, Mark realized he needed to confront not just the logistical elements of the project, but also the mental blocks that had chained him down for so long. "Let's make a pact then. Whenever you feel scared, come to me, and I'll do the same," he proposed. An unspoken understanding tethered them further, their dreams igniting new paths within each other. With the plan taking shape, Mark felt his internal struggle shift from fear to determination. They were no longer just two dreamers caught in a whirlwind of uncertainty, they were a team, armed with tenacity and creativity. Late that night, as Mark sat alone surrounded by papers and sketches, he acknowledged a remarkable shift had taken place. The once potent fear that had throttled his ambitions began to dissolve into a recognition of his own resilience. Unpredictability had transformed into an exhilarating challenge rather than a setback. The journey ahead remained fraught with risk, but it was laced with purpose. The thought of potential obstacles no longer incited dread, they became opportunities for growth. As he scribbled final notes in his notebook, he contemplated the upcoming meetings, the partnerships they would establish, and the art they would create. Suddenly, a hard knock at the door interrupted his focus. It was late, and visitors weren't common at this hour. "Dad? Are you busy?" Lucy's voice pierced the stillness. "No, not at all. Come on in." As she entered, a new spark of creativity ignited in her eyes. "What about our next steps? Can we sketch out some ideas for how everything will look?" Mark smiled, realizing that this next chapter was about to unfold a blend of dreams, commitment, and the interplay of two creative minds. They were far from the finish line, but together they would chase it relentlessly. With every stroke, every plan, and every small victory, he steered both himself and Lucy toward a destiny that now felt more attainable. But lurking behind their blossoming journey lay impending twists he couldn't yet foresee. Little did Mark know that as they leaned into this artistic endeavor, a far greater challenge awaited. What unforeseen obstacles would thrust their creative ambitions into turmoil, testing their resolve like never before? The stakes were rising, and the next test was just around the corner. Mark's mind was alive with possibilities as he sat down next to Lucy, their sprawling paper covered in sketches and notes. Each line drawn symbolized not only artistic pursuits but also the emotional landscape they were navigating together. The laughter that had filled their workspace now transformed into a focused determination. Mark sensed a shift. The adventure was beginning, but so too was the weight of responsibility. "Let us detail the timeline," Mark suggested, trying to ground their exuberance in practical steps. He knew their initial excitement had to translate into actionable items, or it would dissipate. Lucy nodded enthusiastically, her spirit undeterred by the mountain of work ahead. As they began to break their project into phases, Mark found himself leading the technical aspects, attempting to map out logistics while allowing Lucy to express her artistic vision. He relayed his thoughts clearly, yet the contours of doubt loomed larger as he dissected what was required. No longer an observer in his life, but now a participant, he felt the adrenaline mingle with apprehension. The responsibility rested heavily on his shoulders, and with that realization came the gnawing worry of potential failure. "What if we don't meet our deadlines?" he muttered, half to himself. Lucy looked up, slightly startled. "Then we adjust," she replied, her unwavering belief almost naive but reassuring at the same time. "It's art. It won't always go as planned." Her answer resonated somewhere deep within him. Flexibility was essential, he realized, but anxiety tightened its grip on his heart nonetheless. Could he pivot as quickly as he hoped? Mark decided to take a moment of introspection, the world of deadlines swirling threateningly in his mind. What if we reimagine our timelines? Maybe focus on one completed piece first before tackling everything else? He proposed, testing the waters of joint decision-making. Lucy tilted her head, considering. That's smart. Focus on making something beautiful first instead of spreading ourselves too thin. Each word exchanged redefined their roles. Mark's initial instinct was to control every aspect, yet her instinctive creativity complemented his growing awareness of collaboration. They were creating something beyond art. They were shaping a partnership grounded in shared dreams and vulnerabilities, but doubt still lingered like a shadow. Despite their budding collaboration, Mark couldn't shake the anxiety about potential setbacks. The rapidly approaching timeline felt suffocating, each day a reminder of looming deadlines that could shatter their aspirations. In that moment of mental turmoil, he recognized a lesson he needed to confront: fear existed to push boundaries, not to bind them. Allowing himself to wrestle with imperfection, the idea that success and progress aren't linear, would be the first step towards redefining his role, not just as a father but as a co-creator. Drawing in a steady breath, he looked at Lucy. "How about if something doesn't go according to plan? We promised to talk it through together. No hiding our worries, just full honesty." Lucy beamed. "Absolutely. Just us on this ride," he affirmed, the bond between them tightening further under their shared promise. Soon, their scattered sketches turned into an actionable vision. Each idea blossomed under joint contemplation, and Mark found himself animated in a way he hadn't felt in years, adopting a dynamic mindset, receptive to shifts that would enhance their process. Yet as they finalized their plan, a tiny voice within cast doubt once more, whispering questions soaked in anxiety. He looked at the papers, alive with potential but dominated by an intensity he feared would crush them. Could they handle what lay ahead? The ink on their drawings seemed to absorb his growing unease. Mark's gut twisted as he realized their path forward wasn't merely about art, it was about them. The moments of doubt mingled with excitement transformed into a visceral reality, one that validated their journey but also posed an unforeseen question: how deeply could they embrace the unpredictable nature of creativity without losing themselves in its chaos? As they shared ideas, laughter echoed off the walls. Still, beneath the surface, a sense of urgency swelled. A deadline loomed, challenges waited, and Mark knew it wasn't merely their artistic vision on the line. The door that held promises of adventure also creaked open to reveal uncertainty, and as Mark felt the tension radiate throughout the room, he knew he faced a moment of truth. Would they conquer the inevitable chaos of creation together, or would it pull them apart? With that thought hanging heavily in the air, he prepared for the next steps that awaited them beyond their initial plans. The expectations were rising again, push and pull, excitement and apprehension melding into one creative journey that had just begun. But this time, he wouldn't face it alone. As they prepared to dive deeper, attention drifted toward an email that had arrived earlier, an inquiry about collaborating with a seasoned artist, someone with a reputation that carried significant weight. Could this be the break they needed, or would it introduce obstacles they couldn't foresee? The screen lit up, anxiety creeping back in, but anticipation surged alongside, a heartening reminder of the dualities they faced. Would this new opportunity shine as a beacon, or would it cast shadows on their fledgling partnership? As Mark stared at the email on the screen, his heart raced. The proposal from the renowned artist, Evelyn Cole, had a polished confidence to it, her accomplishments towering over their fledgling project. It felt like a dream, yet the shadow of self-doubt crept in, whispering that they wouldn't be able to meet her expectations. Lucy, buzzing with excitement, leaned over his shoulder, bubbling with ideas. "This is amazing. Evelyn's touch could elevate our work to another level. We'd learn so much." Her enthusiasm was contagious, yet Mark felt an inner conflict igniting. What if we're not ready? She's at a different caliber. What if she finds our ideas juvenile? What if— Stop it right there, Lucy interjected, catching his frantic energy. We're not supposed to doubt ourselves before even trying. What's the worst that could happen? Her optimism struck a chord, filling Mark with a volatile mix of nerves and determination. This was the moment he'd been anticipating, yet it could also upend the delicate balance they had just started to forge. "You're right," he conceded, realization dawning. Hiding in fear would only stifle their growth. "Let us meet with her. Let us show her what we've been working on," Lucy urged, her conviction palpable. "What have we got to lose?" As the thought took root, Mark felt both terror and thrill. Every fiber of his being screamed that this was a leap of faith unlike any he had taken in recent years. Accepting the proposal would not only test their artistic skills but also challenge Mark to confront the deep-seated fears of inadequacy that had taken hold since his marriage ended. "Okay," he finally said, a gulp of resolve rippling through him. "Let us do it." The decision transformed the air in the room. As they debated possible presentations for Evelyn, the creative synergy between them intensified. Mark immersed himself in their work, pushing aside anxiety. They laughed, plotted ideas, and pored over sketches, each stroke of pencil further binding their partnership. With each laugh, he felt pieces of his self-doubt eroding, just a little. Dusk began to settle, painting the room in warm hues as Mark reflected on how invigorated he was by Lucy's unwavering spirit. He realized part of this project was about rediscovering himself, a journey through the challenges of fatherhood, creativity, and collaboration. Yet, even as they constructed the framework of their pitch, doubt snaked its way back into his consciousness. Mark couldn't ignore the potential ramifications. What if they put themselves out there and faced rejection? Would it unravel the budding friendship they had cultivated, or worse yet, would his insecurities poison their process? "Mark, are you in there?" Lucy waved a hand in front of him, snapping him back to reality. You look miles away. Just thinking about, well, everything. He hesitated, weighing how much to share. What if we go through this and it all falls apart? If it does, we learn. It's not the end of the world, she replied decisively. Growth comes through challenges. Besides, we're a team. Better together than alone. Mark wrestled with her words as they finalized their presentation. Could he allow vulnerability to serve as a catalyst for growth, stand exposed amidst his failures? Art mirrored life, and for years, he had only dwelt in the shadows. The day of the meeting arrived, and Mark prepared for the inevitable leap into the unknown. Gratitude for Lucy's presence filled him, but the storm of emotions still churned, nervousness overshadowing enlightenment. As they walked into the gallery where the meeting was set to happen, he felt like a diver at the edge of a cliff, contending with the urge to retreat. Ready? Lucy's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. Ready as I'll ever be, he replied, though uncertainty coiled tightly within. He pushed the door open, and as they entered, the bright lights of the gallery hugged them tightly, offering both promise and scrutiny. They had come too far to turn back, but would this partnership withstand the intense scrutiny that awaited them? As Evelyn prepared to hear their pitch, Mark confronted a profound realization. The art they created represented not just their skills, but a reflection of their personal journey. Would this path together lead them toward enlightenment, or reveal deeper fractures lurking beneath the surface? Ultimately, the question loomed, in this new creative venture, how would they navigate the intersection of ambition, anxiety, and the unpredictability of human collaboration? As the lights dimmed and the audience's murmurs faded, Mark's heart thundered in his chest. He could see Evelyn seated in the front row, her presence commanding yet enigmatic, layers of experience etched into the lines of her face. Every detail in the gallery seemed to weave a narrative of its own, but all Mark could focus on was the weight of expectation bearing down on him. Lucy stood by his side, her energy grounding him, a silent reassurance in the chaos of his thoughts. Just breathe, she whispered, her eyes sparkling with an infectious enthusiasm. Yet, Mark felt a tumult brewing within. It was now or never, a moment to cross the divide between mediocrity and ambition. But did he possess the capability to do so? With a swift nod from Lucy, they moved toward the center of the room. Mark was acutely aware of every gaze on them as he began to speak, each word an attempt to anchor himself in the ocean of uncertainty. He presented their project, fueled by a mixture of passion and trepidation, but as he spoke, he could feel fragments of his confidence slipping. Was he really articulating their vision clearly? Was the audience understanding the depths of their ideas, or merely scratching the surface? As he turned to Lucy for support, he saw her vividly engaged, communicating their joint vision seamlessly. Her confidence bolstered him, and he resonated with the power of collaboration. There was an undeniable strength in their partnership that transcended his self-doubt. He began to articulate their passion for art, the stories behind each piece, and how they had channeled their personal experiences into the project, battling struggles, parenting, and the delicate push toward self-acceptance. Seeing Evelyn nod thoughtfully ignited something in Mark, although still muted by lingering discomfort. Would she see much more in their work? He pressed forward, leaning into the vulnerable truth of their journey, revealing creative nuances that reflected deep personal struggles. That's right, this wasn't just about artistic merit, it was about honesty and resilience. Mark, Evelyn said after a beat of silence, her tone drifting from curiosity to scrutiny. You mentioned previous struggles. What specific challenges pushed you to create this? The question hung in the air, demanding a raw honesty he wasn't fully prepared for. Time slowed as he evaluated his emotional landscape, the divorce that emptied his spirit, the relentless burden of single fatherhood that had stifled his creativity, and the rebirth of his artistic resolve intertwined with their collaboration. I've grappled with the feeling of inadequacy, he confessed. But through Lucy, I found a partnership that not only validates my work but inspires me to reclaim my ambition. I learned that vulnerability is not weakness, it's a path to genuine connection, both in art and life. The room fell silent. For a brief moment, Mark felt fully seen. The weight of judgment that had once seemed suffocating began to lift. He felt lighter, despite the anxiety still swirling within him. In that moment of honesty, he realized that his journey, laden with uncertainties, was far from over. It had only just begun. Evelyn leaned back, her expression a mask of contemplation. And what happens if this partnership falters, if one of you cannot meet the other's expectations? Though he sensed Lucy tensing beside him, Mark felt an awakening growing within. It forced him to confront fears not only about their artistic endeavor but about his capacity to bear the weight of such truths long past. If that happens, we adapt. We support each other. I am committed to growth, both personally and with Lucy. Challenges are our teachers, and I'm ready to learn, no matter the outcome. A ripple of tension spread through the gallery. Mark had embraced a new clarity. He stood firmly, no longer just a man fearing failure but one hoping for transformation amid uncertainty. The pitch concluded, both exhilarating and terrifying. As the applause rang in his ears, he turned to Lucy, their eyes meeting, igniting a wordless understanding. They had reached a new threshold, but even as they celebrated a tentative victory, the question lingered within him: how would he confront the deeper fractures in his life that this exposure had so profoundly laid bare? Would his courage withstand the inevitable storms ahead? As they stepped away from the gallery, Mark realized the true journey was just beginning, and lurking beneath this newfound resolve was the daunting truth: his past was trailing close behind. Mark stepped out of the gallery into the cool evening air, the city's vibrant energy pulsating around him. The applause still echoed in his mind, but it couldn't drown out the unsettling thoughts swirling beneath the surface. He glanced at Lucy, who beamed with pride. Her enthusiasm radiated like sunshine, but Mark felt the clouds of doubt rolling in. How could he reconcile this momentous achievement with the nagging uncertainty about his future? The crowd was with us, wasn't it? Lucy's voice broke his reverie. Yeah, I think so, Mark replied, a half-smile forming as he recalled their shared exchange with the audience. But even as he tried to mirror her excitement, a weight nestled in his chest. They walked together, but Mark's mind is already drafting a mental checklist of the critiques Evelyn might deliver amidst the applause. Did they sufficiently highlight the artistic intent? Were the emotions raw enough? His thoughts leaped to the struggles he had laid bare. Each admission felt like stepping into a rushing current, threatening to pull him under. He had shaken off the fear at least for a moment, but the reality of what lay ahead felt like a looming storm. What were you thinking? Lucy asked, her tone shifting to something more introspective. I just keep thinking about what came out of this, he said, tearing his gaze from the bustling crowd. I want to ensure our art isn't just a momentary connection. I want it to resonate. It already does, Mark. Lucy interjected, her hand gently squeezing his arm. You confronted your past in a way many can't. That's no small feat. As she spoke, their footsteps led them to a small cafe, where soft lights enveloped patrons in a warm glow, a stark contrast to the emotional chill Mark felt. He took a seat, pressing his fingers against the surface of the polished wood. Here, he felt a strange combination of safety and vulnerability, both yearning to remain in this newfound clarity and fearing the cracks it exposed. Let me ask you something, Lucy began, leaning closer, her voice soft and earnest. What are you going to do about your daughter? I feel like the discussion opened a door, but you still need to walk through it. Her words struck a nerve, and Mark instinctively recoiled. The specter of his past decisions loomed large. He'd failed his daughter, not just as a partner in life but also as a parent in times of need. He'd shielded her from the details of his struggles, often believing that keeping her worries at bay protected her. But standing there, sharing his truth with the audience, he realized that shielding her might have cost them both the chance to grow together. It's just I've kept my world separate from hers. I thought it was for the best, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. But if I want her to see me, the real me, I have to let her in. No more walls. Lucy met his gaze with unwavering intensity. Then do it. Talk to her. Share your fears, your vulnerabilities. It'll do you both good. Mark could feel the stirrings of resolve forming within him. In this cafe, amidst the fantasies of artistry and connection, came the reality of needing to have an authentic relationship with his daughter. He understood now that to embrace growth meant to dismantle the barriers he'd built. It was not just the art they had showcased that needed to be shared, but the emotional shading of their lives. As he rose from the table, a wave of determination washed over him. He had a path to carve not just as an artist but as a father. He would expose the undercurrents of his past, transforming them into lessons for her, showing that strength lay in honesty. But when he opened the cafe door, his phone buzzed in his pocket. On instinct, he pulled it out to see a message from his daughter, the glow of her name igniting a fresh anxiety. What if she needed him, and he was too late? Mark hesitated, the door still ajar, staring into the night. The moment for confrontation loomed before him, but the questions were forming, ready to drown in the fear of the unknown. Would he have the courage to step through, not only for himself but for her? As he looked back at Lucy, determination mingled with the trepidation of what lay ahead. The moment of truth awaited, and it started tonight, with a single message. Mark stood at the edge of his emotions, a whirlwind of vulnerability and resolve swirling within him. He left the cafe and made his way home, a deliberate pace grounding him as he battled the anxiety building in his chest. Lucy's words echoed in his mind. This was the moment he needed to confront both his past and his present. The road ahead was clear. He would no longer separate himself from his daughter's life. As he entered his home, he was greeted by the familiar chaos of art supplies sprawled across the dining table and the whiff of oil paint settling in the air. Lucy was sitting cross-legged on the floor, deeply engrossed in her latest piece. Her concentration was a mirror of resilience, but tonight, Mark would not let his fears lock him away any longer. He needed to share his truth. "Lucy," he called softly, drawing her gaze from the canvas. Her eyes lit up, curiosity woven with an undercurrent of concern. "Hey, Dad. How was the cafe?" she asked, her voice light but the quirk of her brow indicating something deeper. Mark took a breath, grounding himself. This was uncharted territory, but if anything had proven true through their recent journey, it was that honesty fostered growth. "Can we talk?" She set her palette down, wiping her hands on her paint-stained apron. The evening light softened the edges around her features, making her vibrant spirit shine through even more. He motioned for her to join him on the couch, where the shadows of their past quietly loomed. "I want you to know," he began, his voice steady but his heart racing, "that everything we've been through means more than just art or dreams. It's about us. I haven't always been a great dad. I thought I was protecting you by shielding you from my struggles. I see now that I might have kept you on the outside, instead of drawing you close. And for that, I'm sorry." Lucy's expression didn't shift. She hesitated as she absorbed his words, perhaps waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mark pressed on, his honesty fortifying him. "I've faced a lot of doubts, Lucy. I worried that by opening up my fears, I would burden you. But I realize now that strength isn't hiding from those fears, it's facing them. I need you to know who I really am, the good and the bad. Together, we'll face them." He paused, taking in her reaction. Lucy's eyes widened, her small hands trembled but she remained silent. The air between them charged while Mark's heart raced, knowing he had laid bare a part of himself that had long hidden in shadows. "But Dad," she finally said, her voice steady like armor. "It's okay. I mean, I get it. You're not perfect, but neither am I. We're figuring things out together. At least, we have each other." Mark felt the weight of his apprehensions lift slightly. She was right, they had uncovered a partnership that thrived on their shared journey. "So let us keep that going, Luce. Let us keep dismantling the walls together. I want us to share everything, the failures, the victories, all of it." Slowly a smile crept across Lucy's face, bright and warm like the daylight. "Yeah. And we can paint about it just like we did with the gallery. We can turn those feelings into colors, Dad. The idea lit a fire in Mark. Art could indeed reflect their journey, illuminating paths through darkness. Exactly. He affirmed, feeling a deeper sense of encouragement swell within. He could envision canvases representing their experiences, each brushstroke a declaration of resilience. We'll create art that tells our story, our struggles, our growth, everything. After their heart-to-heart, the two returned to the dining table, surrounded by canvases and splattered paints. The act of creating together transformed the air, morphing tension into anticipation. They began to draft their next project, gutting at each layer of raw honesty onto the canvas. As they worked, Mark realized he was not just creating art, he was crafting an opportunity for understanding and connection. Each stroke unified his dedication to his daughter and the mission of combating their shared fears. He focused on the emerging image, a tapestry of emotions intertwined with vivid colors pulling from their experiences. As the night wore on, the boundaries that once confined their relationship started to dissolve. Side by side, they laughed, pushed limits, and expressed the depth of their partnership. There was a solid weight of satisfaction marking their progress. This was about creating art, yes, but also about nurturing the trust and transparency essential within their bond. By the time they called it a night, Mark felt an unprecedented sense of accomplishment. No accolades could compare, no external accomplishments mattered as much as forging this intimate connection with Lucy. We did more than just create art tonight, he thought to himself, pride welling up inside. In that moment, Mark achieved clarity. His journey of personal transformation had finally intersected with that of his daughter. No longer were they held back by the fragility of his past, they had become a cohesive unit. They were explorers in a world where vulnerability was celebrated, not feared, a world where their intertwined paths illuminated possibilities they would have never recognized alone. Standing in the glow of that realization, Mark vowed to keep nurturing this connection. Facing fears kept him grounded and connected, it gave him the resilience he sought. This transformative moment solidified him. He was not just a single dad working to get by, he was an artist rediscovering strength through collaboration, vulnerability, and love. As Mark and Lucy finally stepped back from their intense session of creation, he smiled. They were creating beautiful art, yes, but more importantly, they were forging an authentic bond built on trust and challenges faced together. That was the real masterpiece they were crafting, and it was unrelenting. This new chapter awaited them, and Mark felt fully equipped to meet the uncertain path ahead with steadfast love and commitment. And now, for those who have witnessed this awe-inspiring journey, this is your moment to join in on this transformative journey. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that uncover triumph over struggle. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this content, making a genuine difference for thousands searching for inspiration. Comment below what your thoughts are about this resolution, your own journeys, and theories about the importance of vulnerability. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of connection and authentic transformation. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of amplifying these messages.